everyone.
Hello.
Today my group is going to talk about Chinese name choice. But first of all, let me just introduce our group members. My name is Sopawan Nakarat.
My name is Benjawanti Prashaban.
My name is Rujie Bai, and you also can call me Lexi.
Oh, you have two names.
Yes, since Rujie is a little bit difficult to pronounce, so I assigned myself Lexi as my English name.
Oh, right. So, do you use your Chinese name with your Chinese friends in here?
Yes, I use my Chinese name when I talking with my Chinese friend, but when I talking with my foreign friends, I always use Lexi.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay, so this is one of the example that we were wondering why a lot of Chinese people have two names, which is English and Chinese name. But before we are going to look at more details in our study, and I am going to talk about the word name, the definition first, and then we will carry on talking about our study. Okay, so what exactly the word name is? Oxford dictionaries mention that name is a word or a set of words by which a person or thing is known, addressed, or referred to. And as we all use name for people or for subjects, and from the definition, we are not going to look at subject's name, but we are going to look at people name with a Chinese name. Okay, so now I am going to give you a little bit of the information about English name choice. Why do Chinese people have two name choice? This can be the reason for you. That because English classroom and the interaction with non-Chinese people have a big impact on name choice in Chinese people. And McFerrin 2009 also points out that in China they have communicative language teaching, which focuses on which is focusing on creative English use. And this factor leads a lot of students assign themselves English name, and some of them also are assigned by their foreign teachers that new name which is in English. And also, moreover, McFerrin also mentioned that the change in Chinese name is not only because the English classroom or the interaction with non-Chinese people, but that is including the pronunciation, the future career, and also new social contacts. Concerning our study, the group members were wondering why there are a lot of students or there are a lot of Chinese people introduce themselves or interact themselves by using English name rather than their ethnic names when they have some kind of interaction with non-Chinese people. And finally, the group member came up with two study questions which Lexi is going to introduce you in a minute.
Okay, here are the two questions. The first one, why do some Chinese people have two names? And the second one is, what are the reasons behind the preference of the name choice? And as for the methodology, we did a small-scale research by interviewing 6 participants in University of Southampton. And according to our analysis, we have categorized the 6 participants into 3 groups. The first group is that Chinese people who have two names, who has only Chinese name. The second group is that Chinese people who have two names and prefer to be called by Chinese name. And the last one is Chinese people who has two names and prefer to be called by their English name. So now let's move to the first group, and my friend will introduce you about that.
Okay, so this is now I'm going to talk about the first group, Chinese people who only have Chinese name. This is one of the 6 participants who only have Chinese name. he doesn't have English name and why. I am going to talk about this. And the participant is a Chinese man and he's originally from China, but he's now working in Southampton. So we have interviewed the participants, and then I have chosen two important excerpts which convey the answers for our studies. Let's move on to the first excerpt. He mentioned that even though he lived in Singapore for 5 years, it's not in China obviously, but he still doesn't have English name. Why is that? He also told us that when he lived in Singapore, even though it for 5 years, and he still doesn't have English name, that's because his colleagues or his friends were Chinese, and the way he interact with those people, he always use his Chinese name. And this shows us that the participant doesn't have to change the way he negotiates with the community. That's because everyone in that community shares a common social practice, which is using Chinese name. And the next one, the second excerpt, gives us a very important evidence that shows us how the participant is trying to be a part of new society, which is in the UK, where he currently lives now. According to the excerpt, the participant mentioned that he would give himself English name in the future, and the reason of that because he said it will be convenient for his colleagues or for people to call him. And also this is supported by McPherron's 2009 that choosing English name in Chinese people is common because Chinese people are concerned about their pronunciation and especially their future career, and these two factors is really related to what Merchant 2, my participant, is doing with his new contact, because of the pronunciation in Chinese will be very difficult for people here to pronounce. That's why he want to change or he want to give himself English name in the future, and also because of his career now the interaction will be only with the international people, so it's also the thing to do with his career. And as the result, assigning himself English name in the future is explained by Dell 2014. That is because the participant or Merchant 2 is trying to negotiate his identity through name choice in order to avoid social annoyances in new communities and also in his various cultural contexts. And the next group, Lexi, is going to give you the presentation.
So now let's move to the second group, Chinese people who have two names and prefer to be called by their Chinese name. In this group, we have only found one example of the 6 participants. Her name is Jialing Wang. She has worked in Singapore for 2 years and now she's working in Southampton. This is the first excerpt. In the beginning of the interview, Jialing introduced herself to us with her Chinese name, Jialing, but added her English name, Lin, shortly after that. When we asked why would she use Lin while she interacting with others, she explained that Jialing is a little bit difficult for those people who are non-Chinese to pronounce. Thus, she used Lin as her English name. But she also mentioned that she still prefers to be called by Jialing if others could pronounce it correctly. One worth noting that is that the reason why she assigned herself Lin as her English name is that Lin is partly taken of her Chinese name. From this we can see, Jiali has negotiated her identity to facilitate the interactions in this new community. However, in her deep inside, she still wants to keep her ethnic identity. And that can be confirmed in the excerpt 2. In excerpt 2, Jiali emphasizes that she did want to keep her ethnic name because her name was given by her parents, which means a lot to her. And we can see that Jiali owes a very strong ethnic identity. However, she's now in a totally different context from China, thus she has to negotiate her identity in order to provide her mobility among different kinds of people in this new community. In the end, as Dell argues that name choice is based on the identity negotiation. However, it is a very normal phenomenon that Chinese people who are abroad have two names. One is their ethnic names, the other is their self-assigned English name. The reason why Jiali represents a group of Chinese people who have two names but prefer to be called by ethnic names, even though their ethnic names are hard to pronounce. The main reason behind that is that names are very important to those Chinese people. It is given by their parents and carries beautiful wishes. Thus, they'd rather keep their ethnic identity than to be called by other names. So now let's move to the last group.
The third group of our participants is Chinese people who have two names but prefer to be called by English name. According to the theory of heteroglossia, each individual has multiple identities. Choice of identity through language is always socially meaningful. Among all participants in our study, 4 of them prefer to be called by English name. The choices are reflective of the negotiation of identity that emerge as they move from old identities to new one overseas. And I give 3 examples, which are 3 excerpts taken from the transcription of 2 participants. The first one is Sylvia. Sylvia is a Chinese student who is studying master's degree in Southampton right now, but she completed her high school from an international school in China. And I asked her why does she have English name, and she answered that she assigned her English name since she was in high school because the class was interested with English name. So the class, she pointed out that the class has superior status to her and she is a member of it, so she complied to it. She recognized that the shared practice in the community is using English name, and that means that the existing practice shared within the community is a guiding force behind her practice. And the excerpt 2 is still Sylvia. I asked her, does she always use English name, and why does she prefer to be called by English name? She explained that even outside the class, she always used her English name because her school is an international school, so there were many exchange students and people interact with English mostly, and people use English name. That's the shared practice in her community. That's why she used English name, and she stressed that she feels relaxed when she uses English name. That means that she is comfortable with her negotiated identity in a westernized community. And the excerpt 3, this is Zoe. Zoe is a Chinese girl who is studying master's degree in Southampton as well. Zoe is another one who prefers to be called by her English name. At first, I interviewed her. She introduced herself with her English name, so I asked her how often does she introduce herself with her English name. she said that she always used her English name to introduce herself here. Never use English name, and she won't tell her English name too. She will tell if it asks only. But when she goes back to China, she said that she always use Chinese name, never use English name. In this case, it means that her ethnic identity is negotiated according to the community she currently lives in, and she interprets the English name as a symbolic resource for her to move in Anglophone worlds. To summarize, according to our findings, Anglophone world is often imagined as a homogeneous monocultural society which Anglicized names have to be obtained to facilitate the interaction. And identity is a pivot between the social and the individual. Building an identity consists of negotiating the meaning of our experience of membership in social communities. To answer the research question, why do some Chinese people have two names, and what are the reasons behind the preference of name choices, we found that most participants in our study prefer to be called by English name. So it means that they chose to negotiate their identity in response to the existing practice in the community they currently live in. And the main reasons behind the preference of the name is, for Chinese name choice, is to remain connected to their own community. And for English name choice is to be part of a new community. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your attention.
So feel free to write down any questions if you have. If we have the box question for the box.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.